Welcome everyone to the My 100 Years Financial Wellness webinar brought to you by Zest Wellness. We are going to begin in about 35 seconds to about a minute. So if you're already here, just get ready and we'll just wait for a couple more people to join. All right, it's 2:01 p.m. We are going to get started. Welcome again, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to the My 100 Years Surviving to Thriving for Your Financial Wellness. We're super excited to share all of this information with you today. We've got a lot to get through, so make sure that you have some water with you and you're ready to learn because we're, again, super pumped to share this information. Along with me, I have Nathan. Do you want to say hi, Nathan?
Hello, hello.
And I have Naval. Do you want to say hi, Naval?
Hey guys, how y'all doing?
So these guys are going to be guiding you through your financial wellness webinar today. We are all members of the Zest Wellness team. So we are part of the Colonial Group International's wellness program. We run that program for different jurisdictions across the Caribbean. We implement an all-encompassing wellness solution with programs on fitness, nutrition, sleep, stress. Stress is kind of what we're talking about today, along with the financial aspects of wellness, biometric markers, mental health, and much more. If you aren't already enrolled in the Zest Wellness program but want to learn more or see if you're eligible to join, just go to joinzestwellness.com and that will give you a lot of information. So with no further ado, here's over to Nathan.
Awesome. Thank you, Ali. So for everyone listening, what we're going to accomplish with our hour together here is we're going to go through kind of three phases. We're going to start with our mindset and then move to the foundation and then get on to some tactics, all to do with financial well-being, with the punchline being, which Ali just alluded to, being wellness, and looking at wellness from a holistic perspective includes being physically active. It includes nutrition, but also includes things like our finances, which then lead to our peace of mind and stress levels. So that's why we are doing this webinar today. So the first thing we'll get started with as our icebreaker is that what we want to accomplish on this webinar is many of us listening in might have efficiency with this topic. We might think, okay, we know financial wellness is important. Yes, I should save. Yes, I should be aware of certain aspects of my life, but it's a whole other ballgame when it comes to, do I take action on that? And do I have self-control? Do I have discipline? It's easy to come up with these ideas when times are good, but when times are bad, to follow through, that's when it becomes difficult. And that's why the tactics in this webinar will help us get through that and help us prepare for the future, so that overall we can leave this webinar with just a little bit more mastery than what we started with at the top of the hour. And so taking a step back for a moment, why is financial wellness of importance to us from a high level perspective? And relating to health, it's because for all of us, essentially worldwide, is that life expectancy has actually been increasing. So what that means is that we're living for longer. But greater life expectancy is only a good thing if our lives themselves are good. And a part of that comes what are our finances like. And so The resources we have here, it helps us with our planning because we know we have a long road ahead of us. And if we want to have the most stress-free future, the most freedom in our future, our finances and our financial wellness become a part of that. Now, to get started with our mindset, we've all heard of or we've felt the effects of shiny object syndrome, which is when we see something, that shiny object, we want that right away. And so our mindset has to be, we need to kind of get out of this hole of shiny object syndrome, because to save, we've got to avoid the shiny objects. And so our mindset has, what we're sharing here for our mindset are 4 tactics to try to beat shiny object syndrome. The first tactic being, be aware of your emotions and acting out of impulse. You can think of yourself either from a helicopter or from 30,000 feet, looking down on yourself in third person, thinking, Nathan, is this really the right thing to do right now? A little tactic right there. Another one is, of course, with all this being holistic, it's much easier to make decisions and think about your future when your health is more aligned to what it should be. So if you're getting proper sleep, if you're eating properly, whereas if you're on a lack of sleep, if you're hungry, it's much easier to act out of emotion, act out of impulse, and always become victim to what the shiny object might be. Another part is out of sight, out of mind. If we are using social media and apps, at least we can be intentional with what we're doing. And lastly, a really interesting point is that we always want to care about first principles, because first principles are timeless. There's always going to be a new fashion handbag. There's always going to be a new pair of shoes, a new phone, a new watch. But what's timeless and something we can all appreciate is something like weight, or something like vitality, something like quality of life. Someone who looks healthy and is happy in their own skin, that never goes out of style. Now, the last part we have here, or the second last part, I should say, towards our mindset for financial wellness is also being aware of this concept called frog in boiling water. And these concepts are a lot to do with just awareness, because awareness is the first step towards then taking action. It's hard to know where we're going unless we know where we've already been. And so what the frog in boiling water kind of mindset means is that if you put a frog, if you have a bowl of boiling water and you put the frog in it, the frog is of course going to jump out right away, and the frog's going to say, I don't want to be in this boiling water right now, it's too hot. It's going to jump out because it feels uncomfortable. But if you have a frog and you put him in a bowl of room temperature water, and then slowly you turn up the dial and you make that water warmer, the frog won't jump out of the water. Even though now the water is boiling hot, in this situation, the frog is not jumping out of the boiling water. Which means is that in our lives, if over time, these small things that might happen, so we might overspend here, we might not save here. It's these small things that then creep up on us, just like the boiling water. But at some point, it becomes unfortunately normal for us, so we don't perceive it as dangerous. We get used to it, and that's why we keep doing it. So what we want to do is we want to be aware of what are these small things in our lives that might be boiling water, but we think they're normal, but really we have the power to change them and not become a victim in this sense. Now, the last little mindset tactic we have here for financial wellness and setting the stage is a concept called hedonic adaptation. And so I think all of us is been through these experiences where something amazing happens in our lives, or we get this new amazing product or service, and the next day we kind of go back to our normal happiness levels, and we go through these waves. It also happens conversely, where a negative event might happen in your life. You might lose something might be stolen, you might and so forth, but then the next day you kind of become back to your regular baseline. And so it's, for us, it's a tendency to return to a relatively stable level of happiness following a positive or negative event, which means that our awareness towards our financial state can help us, because we know that even though we might buy the new car, the new watch, the new purse, the new shoes, long-term happiness is two very different things. And so for trying to optimize for happiness as our lives go on, our quality of life, we can become aware of things like hedonic adaptation and set ourselves up for success in the future. And of course, this all is connected to physical health, whether it be our blood pressure, muscle aches, headaches, heart attacks, mental health such as depression, anxiety. So really, we're thinking big picture, we're thinking holistically when we have these financial tactics in our lives, but then all of a sudden over time, go figure that these financial tactics then lead to a healthier and happier you and I. So as we now turn our gears towards more so being some financial wellness foundation principles and then some tactics, we have here our concept all about being financially fit. What does being financially fit even mean? Well, it means not only are we happy and fit day to day, but also we can absorb the unexpected later on. Myself and everyone listening to this webinar right now knows very well how easy it is for unexpected expenses to come up in our lives. And so it's almost a given now that one has to be able to absorb the unexpected. Just like in business, you never know what might happen 3 months from now, 6 months from now in the future. And also being financially fit means that we know which variable we're chasing. What we're really chasing are the emotions associated with money, such as freedom, comfort, and overall my favorite, the joy of actually sharing that wealth with others. And so when we think about being financially fit and being in the best state of financial wellness as we can, it's not selfish because we know things might happen in the future. And it's not selfish because we know that if we can become financially fit, we can then share that wealth with those we love. And now, what is one underlying principle that is related to all of this? And is the concept of compound interest. You can see on the left-hand image here, a simple diagram or screenshot of two examples of simple versus compound interest. And just over time, over a 10-year period, how much compound interest at the same interest rate can really make a difference. And what's nice about a concept like this is that everyone listening, you might go to your own financial institution and the different financial products may be different, but keeping in mind just this concept of compound interest, this keyword of compound interest, hopefully that is something that everyone can instill in their minds right now to maybe ask that question when you are speaking at your respective financial institution. Secondly, for this slide on the right, we have our image related to two individuals who are both taking advantage of compound interest, yet are started at different time points, with the overall learning from this image being starting as early as you can makes a difference. So it's never too late. Overall, starting as early as you can, because you can even see if these two individuals save the exact same amount each year that they do save over time, just by saving a couple years earlier for Ben, by age 65, you can see how much of a difference there is. Okay, so now we're moving on to another slide here. And you can see that when you go through each of these statements, you want to think about a couple of different answers for each one, 4 different answers. You can think, is this always true for myself? Is this sometimes true? Is it never true? Or is it not applicable? So maybe perhaps credit cards might not be applicable, but the goal being is that if you can self-reflect on these questions and then self-reflect on these questions 6 months from now, that's how you kind of track your progress over time. If we can track our progress, we can stay engaged over time. But it's concepts like this, some very high level concepts, just so we can build our awareness, our reflection towards how we are monitoring ourselves. So whether it be these three main areas of spending and saving, using credit cards, owning money, if we can fulfill these and hopefully have these as close to always being true as possible, then we are setting ourselves up to be financially fit. And with that said, I'm going to bring it back over to Ali for our first audience poll question of the webinar.
All right, everyone. So with these audience polls, we're going to be asking a question, and you can answer those questions with the chat feature on your GoToWebinar control panel. So you can just type in your answer there, and I'm going to be reading out a couple of them as they come about. So I'll just give you guys a few seconds to start answering some of those poll questions. We'll just wait for about 30 seconds, and then I'll start reading some out. All right, we've already got a couple coming in here. We've got some weaknesses are, I put money in savings and I don't touch it. Perhaps that has to do with putting money in the savings, but then ending up taking some out within the next couple of months or within that same month that you put it in. A strength can be, or there's a lot of strengths that are paying off bills in full. That's always good. Paying off bills in full. Reading credit card statements every month is a strength. Paying off the full balance every month is a weakness. See, all of these are very, very common.
Yeah, and something that hopefully with things like this webinar, everyone can have a little bit more control over, because definitely within everyone's circle of control.
For sure. Thanks to everyone who wrote in an answer, and we're going to have a couple other poll questions, or maybe just one more, so keep your eye out for the next one.
Okay, so what's also really unique about the webinars that we try to do with Zest Wellness is that we always try to not only have a little bit of theory and background, but also some practical resources for everyone. Whether the resources being something you might print off. And so the next few slides are actually in the resources section of this webinar. You can actually print these PDFs, and they're all to do with the foundation part of this webinar, but also getting into tactics, because we can talk all we want, or I can talk all I want right now. For everyone to actually create change, which is what we're looking for, these resources can help us do just that. And so in terms of taking this theory and this information and actually turning it into indeed change, we have our first resource being all to do with committing. And so this is a one-page resource with 3 steps, and it's all about having a goal in your life and stating the specific amount for that, stating what account that might go into, stating, okay, you have a big goal like that, but in step 2, how can you actually break it down into smaller goals that are therefore then more manageable? And then overall signing off on that. And it's things like this that if we can commit to it, we can keep it more top of mind. And this is something we can print, and whether it be hang it somewhere in a private office, or we can put it beside our bed. It's something that we can look at and know we committed to it, and we have exact numbers and specifics. And we're not just talking about theory, but we're actually getting into the granular details of what makes sense for me in my situation. And here I have something written down, and I can follow through with it. Okay, so that's our first resource called Let's Commit. Our second resource is actually deciding on, what actually might be my financial well-being score right now. And so this resource, where you have 3 images on this slide, the leftmost image is actually the questionnaire itself. The rest of the second and third, all to do with what your score might be. But you can see from part 1, 2, and 3, from that first image on the far left, you have a couple different questions. You have 6 questions from part 1, and then you have another 4 questions from part 2, which had to do with the actual scoring. But you can see that with these questions, for statements that may or may not describe you, how can you then relate yourself to what might be the benchmark or the average for where you should be at your said state of life? And so whether it be you're doing this survey yourself, you're looking at from the far right image, you're looking at the questionnaire self-administered scoring column. And then depending on your age group, you can see right there what your score might be, which is amazing because when you can track your progress over time, so if you do it today, you do this 6 months from now, then you can actually see, okay, am I making a difference, yes or no, in my life? So we're taking these theories, we're figuring out what is our specific situation ourselves, and then trying to track that over time. So that's the second resource that we have. And in the attachments from this webinar, it's actually called Financial Questionnaire. The first, on the last slide, which was the first resource, was called Saving Rules as the attachment. And then the final resource we have right here is the attachment called Money Choices. And this one's a really interesting one, because it's all about kind of reflecting on our lives and bringing in that concept of mindset again, and thinking of, okay, what does money mean to me? And how can I make decisions about money, or how do I make decisions about money? And then the image on the right part of this slide being a concept which is, I think, amazing for relating your money choices or your money style to who is in your money circle. And so it's just like the concept of, there's a gentleman named Jim Rohn who created a concept that goes along the lines of, you are the product of the 5 closest people in your life. And so just like with something like this, it's your money decisions are influenced by who's in your money circle. And so this helps us be aware of that, because if our money circle is a number of individuals who are savers, it's gonna be much more easier for us to also be a saver. Whereas if we have a money circle of individuals who are spenders, who are impulsive, it's then much more difficult for us to then be something like a money saver, or being someone who's confident with our long-term planning. And so once again, some interesting outside the box resources just to think about what shapes our money decisions and who is in our money circle. And with that said, we're going to now turn our webinar to the phase of financial wellness tactics with Naval.
Hi, everybody. So just as an FYI, Nathan Ali is in my money circle. All right, so I'm going to start it off with 6 steps for elimination of credit card debt. First step we have is ranking each credit card from the highest interest rate charge to the lowest interest rate charge. Definitely you want to list out the outstanding balances on each card, pay the minimum monthly payment on all card balances except the card with the highest interest rate. Also pay as much as possible on cards with the highest interest rate, which is point number 3. Avoid making new purchases on the card with the highest interest rate, and then repeat all these steps all over again. Now, in a gist, what this is basically saying is that, actually, if you could follow me, if you're on a boat in the Atlantic Ocean and you have 2 holes in the boat, right? You have one big hole, which represents the highest interest rate, and then you have a small hole as small as an American dime on your boat. Which hole you think you're going to give the most attention to? Because that big hole, which is the highest interest rate, is the one that's going to cause you to sink. So I'm hopeful that you guys answered and say, hey, I'm going to give extra attention to that high interest rate hole, and let me plug that up, right? So we want to double down on that high interest rate. We don't want to let that run on the minimum monthly payments. You want to go ahead and pay on the interest added with the principal. Now, the interest of that is only the privilege the bank charges you for lending you that money, right? So you have interest rates For credit cards, I think with ranges well sometimes above 10% for sure. So you want to focus and double down on the high interest rate, and maybe you could focus your minimum if you don't have the lending capacity, paying capacity, you definitely want to focus on a minimum payments for the small interest rates ones, but definitely double down on a high interest rate. All right. Now we have here 4 listed budgeting methods. We have budgeting with an envelope, budgeting using percentage, the reverse budgeting approach, and the zero-based budgeting approach. Let's tackle number 1, budgeting with an envelope. Now, it's quite simple. What you want to do is take all of your expenses and even savings, right? You want to put those in categories. It doesn't have to be literally an envelope. You want to allot certain funds or cashes in those envelopes and say, hey, $100 is going towards my entertainment expense. If your rent is $500, which is a fixed cost, you want to say, hey, let me put $500 in that envelope. And here's why. A study suggests that if you spend actually 15 to 20% less when using cash. And I'm a millennial. Nathan and Ali, those are millennials as well. And we know we have a bad habit of using our debit cards and credit cards for everything. Where we go for, like, say, for instance, an entertainment weekend, a Saturday, where it's we visit in the movies, the mall. We also go on to dine into a restaurant. Sometimes when we use our cards, we're not accounting for the withdrawal charges on that card. If it's a debit card, if it's a credit card, it's worse because you're going to get charged interest rate on that. B, we don't account for the little small coins. When I say little small coins, if your bill at the movies is $20.50, when we're swiping, we really don't account for the 50 cents. We just think that, hey, my bill is $20, but those stuff add up. And especially if you're doing it over a weekly period, you take that 20 cents or any additional costs which you haven't really accounted for because you didn't take out cash, and you times that by 52 weeks, you will be surprised how much money you actually spend. So having that cash envelope is going to keep you disciplined how much money you're definitely going to spend. Because if I have $100 and I spend $20 at the movies, but it's $20.50, 50 cents additionally is subtracted from that $100. So I'm really aware of how much money I have left. Hence the reason why science basically states that you spend 15 to 20% less on those stuff. Budgeting using percentages. You could play around the percentages. For example, for myself, 50% of my monthly salary, I dedicate that towards saving. 30% to expenses, and then maybe 10 to 20%, actually 20% to entertainment. Now the entertainment percentage I actually play around with. I don't really have it at 20%, but it's 20% at max. So sometimes I reduce that down to 50%. Say for instance, I want to push that funds more towards the saving side and those sorts. You can play around the percentage. You definitely want to be aware of how much money you are making and realistic as well too, to know how much your expenditures are and how much you can save. The next budgeting approach is the reverse budgeting approach. What you will do is you're going to take your monthly expenses or your monthly income or your weekly income. You're going to subtract your savings and your expenses from that, right? Everything else you have left over, we call it icing on the cake. So that's your money. You can do whatever you please for it because you've actually already allotted money for savings. You already handle all your expenses. So you're in the green, right? So you're playing with some free cash here. So you could use that approach as well. But I tend to not use that. I really use the number 4 more so because I want every dollar to work for me. If you guys listen to the Dave Ramsey show, he's a real good financial, I would say a financial guru. He has a podcast and he has a radio show that I think is aired almost every Wednesday night at 9 p.m. So you can listen to his show. So he says that he wants every dollar to work for him. So really and truly, he has $0 at the end of the day because he already allotted certain monies to entertainment. He's already allotted certain monies to savings. He's already allotted certain monies to expenses. So now he has $0. But really and truly, he doesn't because the savings account has already been satisfied. All right. Next slide. All right, financial literacy. What is financial literacy? This is an understanding of the basic financial concepts that enable you to make smart decisions with your money. Assets are anything that you own that has some value, and actually you could take that asset and convert that back into cash. So property is considered an asset. Furniture is considered an asset, but it is a depreciating asset based on its usage, especially with equipment as well. Those stuff reduce in value. Contrast to property. Property actually increases in value because the demand for land will always be there as population grows. Liability, anything that you owe from a past event that you are obligated to satisfy. So a car loan is a liability. Mortgages are liabilities. Credit card payments and debts, we just touched on that. That's considered a liability. Capital, funds raised to support a particular business or project. So if Nate, myself, and Ali want to open up the next coffee shop here in the Bahamas, we'll take money raised, which would be considered capital to start that business. That will be considered capital. Interest, right? Touched on this a little bit, is the amount a lender charges for the privilege of borrowing money. All right, so it's basically the bank saying, hey, I loan you X amount of dollars. Here's my interest rate charges on that, because it's the privilege of lending you that money. They don't have to lend you that money, but it's the privilege of lending you that money. Stocks, equity ownership in a company. And we have a lot of individuals that mix up stocks and shares, right? So if you purchase a stock in a particular business or anything, you are considered an owner of that business. For example, I have here, if you own a stock in Apple, that means you're literally an owner of Apple, right? Shares, though, represent the piece of your amount of ownership in a company, right? Before the late great Steve Jobs passed away, if you had one share and he has 99 shares, what that says that he owns majority of that company, right? And this comes down to decision making as well too. Whereas if a person owns more shares than you do, he has much more say in what the business is going to do in the future, right? He has much more power, I would say, in the business to make decisions, right? Dividends, distribution of the portion of a company's earning to its shareholders, right? So can be paid in cash or in the form of stock. Okay. All right, so these are some following questions you should ask yourself. You do some form of self-assessment to find out if you're financially literate. Do you know the basic financial concepts we just went through just now? Do you have an emergency fund in place in case of a sudden life change? You might have lost your job, you might have wrecked your car, or lo and behold, we had a situation in the Bahamas with Hurricane Dorian. Do you have enough funds in place in case a natural catastrophe like Hurricane Dorian comes and hit the island? Believe it or not, we were aware maybe a month or 3 weeks out at best in regards to Hurricane Dorian. Do you think that you could look back at your savings account right now and say, hey, I have enough funds if this Category 5 storm with packed in 200-mile-per-hour winds comes and blows off my roof, destroys my car, I'm going to be able to work for maybe 1 or 2 weeks. Do I have enough money to survive? Right. So those are some questions you really got to self-analyze and say, hey, let me just make sure that I have emergency fund in place, because we live in the Caribbean, and natural catastrophe disasters such as hurricanes are part of the norm. It's almost like it's part of our culture now. Like you expect for sure during the summer period that you're going to be looking out for hurricanes and making sure and your countries don't get hit, right? So we want to make sure we have emergency funds in place. All right, so we have the financial responsibility checklist. Live within your means, and I just heard Nate mention the shiny object syndrome, and we do have that here in the Bahamas as well. I have some results from Financial Literacy Survey in 2018 that our regulator, the Central Bank of the Bahamas, have just done. Oh, actually, sorry, in 2018, it mentioned that financial struggles, one of the main causes of our financial struggles in this country was we had many individuals living above their means. They're basically falling within the shiny object syndrome. They're acting on emotions, especially with the social media. I spoke to my grandmother the other day, and she's like, "You guys, the new generation, have it really tough because back then, in order to get in order to receive peer pressure, you had to go out there and actually see the flashy cars. Now you could open up your phone and maybe go on Instagram or Facebook, and you got it right in front of your face. So the peer pressure is much greater now. We are having a lot of young individuals who don't have their priorities in check because they're gonna, hey, they tap into their emotions and say, hey, I'm gonna buy this brand new car, knowing that you can't afford it and you don't have any property in place. So we definitely want to live within our means. Save for the future. I also have a report here from the central bank which states that 26% of those respondents to that survey will be depending on national insurance, the National Insurance Board, which is a social security scheme, if you guys don't know. And this fund may be exhausted by 2030. But we have a lot of individuals who don't have retirement funds in place and are depending on a social security scheme, which is going to be exhausted by 2030. So you want to make sure even as I'm 28 and I'm starting to think about retirement as of now, making sure those funds are in place. Pay your bills on time. Obviously, you don't want to incur any late payment charges. Control your spending habits. Please be disciplined on the weekends. Create a budget. All right, you want to create a food budget, the gas budget, entertainment budget. Those stuff are very, very important. Definitely buy smart. This goes back to mention number one, which is live within your means. If you want a watch, it doesn't really have to be a Rolex if you just need something to tell you time. If you need a car, if you want a car, you don't have to go there and buy the most expensive car. You just need something to get you from point A to B. So purchase smartly. And then obviously become financially literate. You want to be wise you want to make smarter decisions. So you want to be aware and wise of these financial products being offered. All right, so we have some financial literacy resources, and I failed to mention something here as well. We have in the Bahamas. It's called Get Money Smart Bahamas. This has been created by the Central Bank of the Bahamas. So to get on is www.getmoneysmartbahamas.com. They have a lot of budgeting nuggets. They have budgeting trivia questions and games you could play in. They have financial product definitions and stuff, same stuff we have here. I mentioned the Dave Ramsey podcast. He's really good. Rich Dad Poor Dad, I think a lot of individuals already heard about that book, but it's a really, really good book to go ahead and reread again. And then CNN's Money 101, which is free online classes on 23 different financial topics. So those are really, really good financial literacy resources that I even use today still. All right, so we want to go over to the next slide. All right, so investing. So in simple terms, investing is putting your money aside or into a fund in hopes to gain some benefit in the long run. All right, we touched on stock. The stock market was originally introduced in 1917. Basically, with stocks is purchasing an ownership within the company. So you want to be maybe wise and do your research before you go ahead and invest in any company or any stock. Investment bonds. Now, a lot of individuals get stock and bonds mixed up. I don't know why, but the organization sells you the bond, which you pay an interest on the loan. So basically, what this is telling you is that you become the bank, right? So you lend money to a company or a government. Now, they pay you an interest because now they're paying you the privilege of loaning them that money. So you become the bank now, and the government or the company becomes the recipient. Now, obviously, because it's less risky, your returns wouldn't, or your dividends wouldn't be as high compared to maybe a stock market, because it's a lot of risk into play in the stock market. So you definitely want to be, if you want something sure, I would say you go with a bond, but just know that you may not receive the returns you're looking for. Savings account. Obviously, it's less risky. Really and truly, you don't in the Bahamas. I don't know what any other places in the Caribbean, but you don't receive that much interest on having a savings account. But it's a safe haven to have your money there instead of under a mattress, for sure. All right. Physical commodities, and we've mentioned, I like to focus on gold. Gold is one of the longest lasting social construct. If you remember from, I guess I'll even go back to say the 1400s during the voyage of Christopher Columbus. And if you watch a movie like I do, Vikings, you will find out that around that era, it was a bullion era, meaning that those individuals were more interested in gold or silver, which determined how wealthy a country is. And to be honest with you, in 2019, that still stands today. Gold is the longest social construct ever known to man. And also, if you, this is a good nugget as well too. Sometimes, not all the times, but sometimes when you see the percentage of gold rises, that means that individuals or investors are really unsure of any other social construct in the market. So they are doubling down on gold because they are so sure of it that it's been because it's been around for so long. I have an article in front of me from CNN Future and Commodities that says that gold gains as global recession fears lift safe haven appeal. This was done in August 14, 2019. And it states that gold rose 1% because of investors' unsurety of the market. They thinking that a recession is about to happen. So the only thing they are sure on right now is gold. So gold and also silver. Silver gained 1.2%, which valued it at $17.17 per ounce. So those stuff raised because investors' unsurety of the market. They're thinking a recession is about to happen, and this is the only thing they are sure in. They sure in gold than anything else. All right, so we have the 4 M's for successful investments. So first of all, you want to make sure that you know who is managing the company. For lack of better terms, if I have the management team consists of Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, and Mr. Jeff Bezos, of course I'm going to invest in that company. I'm very sure about the management of that company that is going to be run well. Meaning, it's good to invest in stuff that has personal meaning to you. We have a lot of individuals who just invest in companies that they know would have the moat, right? I'm going to touch on that in a second. They just invest in companies who know they have the moat. They know, like Apple, they're not really interested in technology at all, but they just see Apple, that Apple has that moat. Coca-Cola has that moat. So they want to go to those companies, but not really going to do any further investigation because those companies don't have any meaning to them. There's no personal meaning to them. Like they're interested in fitness, but that's technology, so they're just going after the money. So I'll say for sure, invest in stuff that has a meaning to you. Now, what is a moat, right? So a moat could be, for example, an intangible asset, and that could be a brand. For example, Apple. Right, Apple is a moat. You know why? Because there's people are so sure in the brand of Apple that it within itself that any other product except for Apple is considered to be inferior. Right? They really sure about Apple. That's like something that has a competitive advantage over any other person in that phone market. That I'm sure in Apple, and Apple itself, its brand becomes a moat. Right? Patents as well can be considered a moat, right? This is something which prevents other companies from selling the same product. So it provides some form of protection for that company. Let me bring it back to, sorry, let me take it back to during the ages of castles and stuff like that. During those eras, if you had a castle and you have gold, the king has silver in there, he has livestock, agriculture, a lot of stuff going on in that kingdom. Obviously, he knows that you have other rivals who are trying to take that away from him. So what his moat would be would put some kind of defense mechanism in place. He would put some water, right? Dredge some water, like put a river between land and the castle, or put some, I don't know, I'm going far, you put some sharks in there or whatever the case is. That's the defense mechanism for the castle, so nobody could ever cross that, right? So just think of the brand or the patent, those stuff are considered moats for a company. And it was actually given by Mr. Warren Buffett. Also, we have the margin of safety, which is the fundamental part of value in an investment, right? What this means is that when its price is not only lower than or equal to your calculated fair value, but that is significantly lower. This provides you with some play where your assumption about the company can be a little off, and yet the investment will still turn out to be okay over the long run. So definitely that gives you, the margin of safety gives you a lot of play, right? Because we are just predicting here what companies we should invest in, right? So we definitely want to have some play between what the actual value is and what you could get it at. So if you get it at a very significantly low rate, that means that if the stock is done bad or good, you still have a lot of play in between. You have a lot of gray area in between for any mistakes that may arise. All right, so we have some investment terms you should know. We have commodities, which are shares of a company. We have hedge funds. You have hedge funds, where privately owned companies that pool investors' dollars and reinvest them into complicated financial institutions. We also have mutual funds, which is an investment security that enables investors to pool their monies together into one professionally managed investment, right? So you'll have a basket which is filled with different stocks and bonds, right? And that would be considered your portfolio. So if an investor buys something, I would say like 1 through 3 Bahamas stock, even though they're buying one investment security, that basket is filled with so many different stocks and bonds gathered from all around the Bahamas or all around the globe. All right. We have real estate here. I just mentioned this now. Real estate doesn't depreciate. If anything you want to be showing right now, except for social constructs as gold, land and real estate should be something on your radar as well. All right, so check yourself on this journey. You want to definitely reduce your credit card debt, increase your contributions to various savings portfolios. Here in the Bahamas, we also have credit unions as well. You could look and do some investigation at that. We also have here Colonial. We have our Colonial Pension Fund. Yeah, definitely. I just got my statement the other day, and I was quite pleased on what I've accumulated thus far. Also, you want to reduce your monthly expenses. Also, look at stuff like your leisure expense, right? You want to reduce sometimes your leisure expense, especially if you're going through a tough month or you're trying to accomplish a goal. You want to decrease sometimes your what we will call it a variable cost, which is your electricity, right? Save energy and practice this not only at home, but you can practice this at your workplace as well too. You want to definitely turn off the lights if you're not using them. If you're not watching the TVs, turn those off as well. There are variable costs that you could control because it's based on usage, and that'll definitely affect your monthly expenses.
All right, here we go with another audience poll where you, the audience, get to participate by answering the question in either the questions box or in the chat box, up to you. So if you want to start typing in those answers to this audience poll, go right ahead. We want to know what changes you're looking to make in your financial wellness. So potentially looking back at that slide before, have you reviewed where you're putting your finances, or how many financial planning areas do you have for your retirement? Do you have any debt? Where are you contributing in terms of your investments? And what do your monthly expenses look like? So we have a few answers coming in here. Here we go. Reducing monthly expenses is a big one. Definitely paying off credit card debt, paying off loans, decreasing monthly expenditures, increasing savings. That's always a good one. There's a lot of people wanting to increase more savings. So how you can increase your savings is definitely by decreasing those leisure expenses or anything like that, so that you do have more income to put towards your savings, just as Naval was saying before. Awesome. Lots of just savings and paying off debt. Naval, what is some way that you want to change your financial wellness, or do you feel like you're already pretty financially well?
No, definitely not. So it's an ongoing process. The good thing is one of the key things is you want to develop habits, right? You want to practice this thing over and over again. And there are going to be some months and some weeks that's going to get tough and you're not going to stay disciplined with those stuff. So for me or any individual, I'll say, yes, you have all the nuggets in place, but you want to practice those good nuggets and good habits on a consistent basis. That's the only way you're going to achieve total financial wellness.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing that, Naval. All right, next slide. Okay, so on the Zest Wellness program, we definitely have a couple healthy habit nudges that we continuously give our members using our app or using other either email newsletters or things like that. So if it's helpful for you to be reminded daily to start creating these habits, then that might be something that you're interested in. Then you can definitely visit joinzestwellness.com. A couple of these healthy habits are saving on your little expenses here and there, such as saving on coffee. So when this healthy habit comes up in your phone, you can look in it and be like, oh, I'm just about to go buy a coffee, but I could actually save a few bucks and maybe just add a couple more minutes onto my morning routine by making a coffee at home. A couple other things that you could always incorporate to save some money here or there is to actually really create a strong plan to shrink your debt. So having something that is a set amount that you're putting aside every month rather than just hoping you have some cash left over at the end of the month that you can then put towards your debt, making that a priority first and then putting leisure in after is definitely something to think about. So there's lots of healthy habits that we like to start instilling in our lives and that we promote that other people can also instill in theirs. We'll go to the next slide. Awesome. So you make a living by what you get. You make a life by what you give. So that's something that you can really keep in mind. And there's a couple of different ways that you can take that. You can take it literally by thinking about your finances and where you choose to spend them. Or you can think about that as in what you get or what you've received by either the way that you've grown up and what your finances are like that way, and then what you can give to others that potentially have a different scenario than you have grown up in a different area. So next slide. So we are in a lot of different places, so you guys can have access to our Zest Wellness information anywhere you want. We have a fairly active Instagram account, Zest Wellness CGI. We're also on Facebook at Zest Wellness CGI. We do have a blog that is linked on our website, zestwellnesscgi.com. That's where we share more personal stories about what our Zest Wellness members are going through, as well as links to our podcasts and webinars, which we like to do on a fairly frequent basis so that we can try to get out the most wellness information as possible. Because our goal here is to just try to get people as well as they possibly can be, live the life that they want to live. And we'll hand it back over to the guys with the next slide.
Okay, and so to kind of have our final slide right here for this webinar, we just wanted to share that this is by no means easy. And so we began the webinar by talking about how we might realize or we might know that being financially literate or saving or paying off debt, beating shiny object syndrome, being financially fit, knowing compound interest, etc. We know it's of importance, but do we act on it? And by no means are many of the concepts that Naval talked about in terms of financial literacy easy. But that's why we do these webinars. That's why we do what we do. with the Zest Wellness platform and over digital marketing to try to empower each and every person on this webinar to take control of their life. Because at the end of the day, if we can be our best selves through our health, which includes our financial status, we can then be the best coworker, family member, community member we can be. So just wanted to share with everyone that this webinar did have a lot of information. It's not easy. You can see by the statistics that financial literacy is by no means an automatic concept to everyone, but together we can become better. And so I'll just leave it to Naval again one last time to close our webinar out and to share with us any parting thoughts as we get back to our day.
All right, so one of the things I want to leave with you all is I just got an article again from John Roll, just to piggyback off the financial wellness statistics. John Roll is the governor of Central Bank Bahamas, and it states that overwhelmingly this survey, which was conducted in 2018, found that a lot of individuals have knowledge of these financial products and concepts, but has not translated this into the same level of positive changes in personal behavior. Meaning that we have just given you some nuggets, and I'm sure that some of these nuggets you've heard before, but you're not incorporating those in your personal behavior. So like I said, this is almost formulating a habit change, right? So it's similar to if you want to work out, you want to get that best bod, that six-pack ab for the summer period. You got to stay consistent with working out. You got to stay consistent with your nutrition. Take those same type of principle and apply those to your financial well-being. You want to stay consistent with saving. You want to stay consistent with budgeting, and definitely you're going to reap a reward, right? So you're going to definitely reap positive rewards. Take those same financial nuggets, apply them to your personal lifestyle. I'm sure that you're going to see some form of changes. All right, so just stay consistent in the game. And I know it's going to be tough, especially with all the social media pressures, but stay consistent to the game and set some goals, because those goals are going to keep you consistent.
That said, if your organization is a part of the Colonial Group International, Brick Hay, or Atlantic Medical family, you can enroll in the platform at joinzestwellness.com. Thank you, everyone.